My name is Mittal, and I have my colleagues Ashwin and Subhadra with me today. And we'll be talking about how birdwatchers' observations have helped us in science and conservation. And we will take questions at the end. So if you have any questions, please type in the chat box. This session we have split into two parts. The first part I will be talking about how birdwatchers have been contributing to science and how you can get involved in it. So the second part is more about how to get involved, and that will be led by Ashwin. So to start with, before we do that, I would like to talk more about, I would like to give a quick introduction first. So we all know that birds are a wonderful window into the natural world, and birds are all around us, regardless of where we live, from the middle of the most crowded cities to fields, lakes, and forests. And it's hard to imagine a square kilometer of land without birds. Moreover, they are large, colorful, and loud, so we really have no excuse for not noticing them. Part of the fascination for birds is their tremendous variety in size, in shape, in color, and where they live. From the open ocean to the driest of deserts, you'll find birds everywhere. And of course, they show fascinating behavior. So here is an image of Baya weaver on its nest. So this is quite an unusual bird in the bird world because only the male builds the nest. So in most birds, either the female or the male and female together build nest. But in Baya, the female plays no part in building the nest. Let's start by examining what it is that birdwatchers do. So as birdwatchers, we go out, we watch birds, we photograph them, sometimes going to extreme lengths. And we also note down what we see. So here are two such images where birdwatchers have been keeping notes in their diary. And unknowingly, they've been collecting valuable data in terms of time, location, where they birded, what they saw, how many species they saw. How about if all this data is uploaded on a common platform? So since 2014, a large number of Indian birders have come together on this platform called eBird. If you look at the map here, you would notice that it does not have any political boundaries, and all the yellow seen in the map area are bird observations. And so far, around 20,000 bird watchers have uploaded more than 15 million observations, covering all states and union territories from more than 600 districts. And these also include observations from many bird watchers who have uploaded their 30, 40-year-old observations from their notebooks to this common platform. With so many observations, there is a substantial amount of data available for research and conservation. With this data, we now have information to talk about the abundance, distribution, migration, and other aspects. Let's talk about abundance. So field guides often mention terms like common, not common, rare, uncommon, and all these are verbal and vague. A species might be common in my region, but may not be where you live. Based on how frequently a species has been reported in each checklist, we can calculate the abundance of species. For example, here in this slide, what we have done is we just took an example of 5 species, let's call it A, B, C, D, E, and these are the number of lists. So if species A is reported in all 5 lists, then the frequency of reporting is 100%. Similarly, if species B is reported in 3 out of 5 lists, then the reporting frequency is 60%, and so on and so forth. So based on this reporting frequency, we can understand how abundant a species is in a given area. Let's now ask, what is the most common bird in India? If we were asked this question, Until few years ago, we wouldn't have any idea, and everybody would have a different answer to it. Some would say crow or myna, but now we have answers. Now this map is based on a large amount of bird lists uploaded over a time period of 4 days during an event called Great Backyard Bird Count. From all the lists uploaded, we could calculate the 5 most commonly reported species from each of these 7 regions. And if you look closely, you would notice that common myna is reported in from every region except the west. So this is just the beginning to understand what could be the most abundant species in the country. What's surprising is that even for a large and easily identifiable species like the black-headed ibis, no two field guides agree on the geographic range. Here is a map from the Birds of Indian subcontinent, and this is the Ripley's field guide, and you would see how different both of them are. But when you plot the observations uploaded by bird watchers on this map, you would get a clearer picture on the overall distribution of this species. Here is how the map will look on the online portal. And unlike in the field guide, where you can just see the map and nothing beyond that, here we can see the origin of each piece of information. So all the purple squares that you see are 20 by 20 kilometer grids consisting checklists reporting black-headed ibis. And when you further zoom in, you will see all the checklists that have been uploaded. You can zoom in further and you would notice the checklist submitted by different people. And when you click on the checklist, this is how the checklist will look like. So you can see who has uploaded, what time of the year and from which location. And you can examine all the information to your satisfaction. Migration is one of the most amazing phenomena in nature and also one of the least understood. But with the data available, we can now see fine details of migration timing for any region of the country. A classic example are the animations map that Ashwin has been able to create based on the birdwatchers' observations. So taking the example of these two sparrow-sized birds, which are winter migrants to India. So the green warbler shown in green here breeds in a very small area somewhere in Western Asia. And the greenish warbler has a much larger breeding range, including the Himalayas. But both species come down in India during the winter months. In fact, if you look here, these are the months from January to December. They both spend a very brief amount of time in their breeding grounds and spend much longer time in our country. So the entire population of both species is funneling in India during the winter season. Many of you might be familiar with this famous falcon, the Amur falcon, and it has a very interesting migration journey. It passes through India in large numbers through northeast, crosses the ocean to reach its wintering ground in South Africa, and then again back to its breeding ground in northeastern China. Quite a dangerous and extraordinary journey to cross ocean back and forth from the breeding grounds to the wintering grounds. So we saw how birdwatchers' observations have helped us understand the abundance, migration of birds, but what about the trends? Are their numbers increasing or declining? Are some species being less reported now than in the past? What is their conservation status in India? We need to know this to take the necessary conservation actions in future. Recently, 10 organizations came together to create a report called State of India's Birds, which provides some answers to these questions. This report looks at the conservation status of 867 species of birds using almost 10 million observations uploaded by birdwatchers on eBird until May 2019. The data also shows an investigation into the historical and the current trends in Indian bird populations, which was not possible before. Based on whether species are declining, increasing, or stable in both long and short-term trends, 101 species have been placed in high conservation concern category, 300 plus in moderate concern, and the rest in low concern. Here is a list of some common species that show strong long-term decline. Familiar birds like small minivet, common wood shrike, common teal, short-toed eagle, they all are showing worrying declines. Another example is the white-rumped vulture. The distribution map of the white-rumped vulture over the last 5 years shows that its once wide range has reduced a lot. The reporting frequency of the species in eBird has crashed since before 2000, which closely matches the population monitoring being done by the BNHS and the RSPB. The results show strong long-term decline, which is not surprising, but more worrying is that this decline continues, and it has been continuing over the last 5 years. These patterns combined places this species in high concern categories in the state of India's birds. By contrast, our national bird, the peafowl, is doing very well. It is not only widely distributed across the country, but it is also now spreading in new areas in Kerala and also arid areas of Rajasthan. Its reporting frequency has doubled since before 2000. And for this reason, the peafowl is placed in the category of low concern in the State of India's birds report. All this new insight into the range size and population trends of Indian species and therefore their conservation status has been made possible only because of the observations of thousands of bird watchers. If we aggregate similar species together, some new patterns are seen. For example, raptors as a whole are declining, but most open country specialists and scavengers are showing stronger declines in the long term when compared to the woodland and generalist species. So if you look at here, the open species like black-winged kite, short-toed snake eagle, these kind of species and the scavengers are showing much larger declines compared to the other two raptor groups. So far, all these trends and analysis have used checklist data. But what about media, such as photographs and audio recordings that the bird watchers upload? How are they useful? So far, we have more than 8 to 9 lakh photographs and audio that are publicly available for examination of plumage patterns, subspecies boundaries, variations in mocks. One example is the Indian paradise flycatcher. Now, you can look into the variation of plumage of male paradise flycatchers. So if someone wanted to see whether these mocks vary across range or its age, they can examine the photos and their corresponding locations and go from there. So many such interesting questions can be asked even using songs or calls that get uploaded to eBird. So on to our last section, how to get involved. To start with, as a bird watcher, you can start uploading your observations to eBird. Even if you have lists made in your notebooks from previous years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years back, no matter how long back, do consider uploading them too. Ashwin will talk more about how to use eBird. But before that, I'll just take a few more minutes to talk about BirdCount India, the organization that we work with. BirdCount India is an informal network of non-government and government organizations. It's a partnership of formal and informal birding groups across India, including groups on Facebook and WhatsApp. And we encourage the use of global bird listing platform, eBird. On our website, you will find bird ID articles, upcoming events, campaigns, challenges, birders profile. And we manage the eBird India portal. And we have 200 volunteer reviewers that help with the data quality part in eBird. If you're new to birding, then there are series of articles on our website that you can go through, and it can help you to get started in birding. Thank you very much for listening. And if you have any questions, please type it in the chat box. We'll try to answer them towards the end. And I will now let Ashwin take over from me. Thank you.
So, hi everyone. Thanks, Mithal. So, I suppose all of you have got an idea of how useful it can be to document birds in terms of understanding them and conservation. And one way to contribute this information and share knowledge is through the eBird portal. Some of you may have already tried it. Can I get an idea of how many people have used the app and how many people haven't through chat, maybe? If any of you haven't ever used eBird, could you just say something in the chat box?
You can actually click yes or no. Then that can be counted.
Okay, yes or no.
Under the bottom of the participants list, there is this yes and no, which you will be able to click on.
Any no's?
1 no and 7 yes.
Okay, great. Let me do one thing. I'll take you quickly through the app, of how the app works, and give you an idea of what's happening in the back end, and give you a short demonstration of how you can explore birds more on the website. So I'll just share my screen. The questions, maybe we'll take it at the end, or if somebody can, Mithal or Subhadra, could you just answer in the chat box anything related to the previous talk?
Yeah, we'll do that, Ashwin.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Oh no, wait. Okay, so this is the eBird app. Many of you have seen it. You have what you have is a date that shows up, a time that shows up, and an option that says start checklist. But before any of you actually use the eBird app, you need to create an account, an eBird account, and the moment you install the app, it will give you the option of doing that. So I won't go into that, but I'll tell you what to do after you install the account. After you install the account, and you click on the three bars on the side, you'll see an option that says settings, right? So if you click on settings, you'll have options like common name, scientific name, and both. It depends upon what you want to see. Some parts of the world, they like looking at scientific names. In India, we generally like looking at common names. I like looking at both. So that's for you to choose. Then you see something that's very important here, that's language. So show common names in. The default option will be English United States. Please change it to English India, because the names we use are a little different from the names that are used elsewhere in the world. Examples are something like Sykes Lark. We say Sykes Lark, right? But the official name is Tony Lark. Do you have that in any part of West Bengal? Maybe not. Some other possibilities are Mithal. Any thoughts? Which are these ones?
So even the way some birds are spelled, like grey neck bunting or grey pangolin, the spellings that we use in India are different than what is used in United States.
Yeah, like grey wagtail is spelled with Grey, and in the United States it's Gray. So it basically makes it a little easier for us. It's the names which we are used to. Oh, sorry. I need to put off my. Okay, anyway. Then you see an option that says subspecies for data entry. You can, I keep that on. That depends upon whether you want to see subspecies or not. And then you have an option that says show distance in India. We prefer kilometers, not miles. So choose that. And importantly, make your portal, set your portal below to eBird India. All of you already use eBird. Maybe you could just go through this to see whether you've enabled this. So if you've selected the portal eBird India, all of this information is going to be contributed directly to the global biodiversity information facility, and it counts towards India's biodiversity target. So it's an important thing to do. Okay, so going back here, this is what we have. Again, if I click on those three lines on the side, you'll see an option that says packs. So the moment you install the eBird app, you'll get the option of packs. And packs is basically, for India, we have a single pack, and that is what will be suggested for you, and you can install that. And that basically determines the bird list that you will see in any part of the country. Even if you do not have internet, and you start making a checklist in West Bengal, you will see a bird list that is specific to your part of the country, irrespective of whether you have internet or not. So it's a very important thing, and this is how the app functions at the moment. So you first install the pack. It's a one-time thing. I think it's about 12 MB, and then you can start making checklists. Okay, so now how do you create a checklist? So let's say now 26 November 2020, 1756, I click on start checklist. You see there's an option that says record track. You see that option? So that record track is on, which means that now when I make my checklist and I walk around, it's going to record my track. And later on, if I go back and see, it will tell me where all I've gone during this birding session. Anyway, so I click on start checklist and it shows me a list of birds. So now this list of birds, remember, I don't need internet. To start checklist, I do not need internet. Only to submit or to upload, I finally need internet. So let's say I've started the checklist now. There's a time which is running. There's a location which is selected and a bunch of species. Now these species, if you start a checklist in your area, you will see a slightly different set of species than what I see over here. Because the list of species that shows up is determined by a filter. And this filter is different based on where in the country you are. For example, in your filter in West Bengal, you will not see things like yellow-billed babbler. You're not going to see it in the Kolkata filter, or you're not going to see something, a Western Ghats bird, Nilgiri wood pigeon. You're not going to see that, right? So that is what this list of birds is. Now, when you see this list, you'll see some that are empty. I mean, some that don't have any sign next to it, and some that have this yellow half circle. And then you'll see some that have a red circle. So now this is an indication of whether that species is common here or not so commonly seen or very, very rare. So the red species are ones that in this time of the year in your area, it has not been reported at all. So which means that if you ever see a red species and you want to enter it, I mean a species with a red circle, you might want to provide some notes or a photo or something like that, so that that record will stand the test of time. Somebody looking at it 10 years later will say, okay, this species is rare over here, but this person has explained clearly why it is that species. Therefore, I will believe it, like that. So a data set like this has something like that has more authenticity in the future. Okay, so now you have, even for the yellow circles, it's worth giving some sort of information. So if you see, house sparrow is infrequent in my area, but I assume if some of you are from Kolkata, house sparrow is actually quite common most in many parts of the city, if I remember right. Anyway, so how do you enter a species? Let's say I want to say I saw 5 Indian peafowl. So I can do it in 2 ways. I can go to Indian peafowl on this list and I can do this. I can click on it and put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Click on the plus sign. Otherwise, I can click on the bird and I can change the number. I can make it 10 or 15, right? I can also, then this is the best way, I can use species codes to search. So Indian peafowl, every species has a 4-letter code. or think of it as a 4-letter code, 3 to 4-letter code. So now I will put, for Indian PFOL, I'm going to say INPE. INPE is going to take me to Indian PFOL. And then I can put a number, something like Indian spot-billed duck, ISBD. So it is, if it's 4 words, it's going to be the first letter of each word. If it's 2 words, it's going to be the first 2 letters of both of those words. What if it's something with 3 words, like spot-breasted fantail? That will be SBF is actually enough, but SBFA is also fine. Is that clear? But now you can enter these numbers even more easily. So if I want to enter 10 Indian peafowl, or let's say not Indian peafowl, 10 grey francolin, say, then all I need to do is I need to put the number 10 GRFR. And then if I click on it, I get 10 grey francolin directly. Let me say I want to put 25 greenish wobbler, 25 GRWA. And I click on green or greenish wobbler here, it immediately becomes 25 greenish wobbler. So now what do I have in my list? I have 2 species. I have 10 grey francolin, 25 greenish wobbler. Is that clear? Now, what is a rare species? So a rare species is something that will show up as rare actually. So let me just show you what that looks like. So now I have a species like, let's say, yellow-browed wobbler. Yellow-browed wobbler is, I think, common in parts of Kolkata now, right? So let me try putting yellow-browed wobbler here. It's going to show as rare. So you see there's a R sign. So rare means that if you enter it and upload it, it will not immediately show up on the map. It needs to be confirmed by a reviewer. In that, the reviewer will take into account the evidence I put. So for example, if yellow-browed wobblers I report are automatically going to go on the map, then there'll be a lot of scope for mistakes. So instead, what I will do when I'm reporting, let's say I've seen a yellow-browed wobbler and I hear it call. Let's say I hear its typical call. So I'll say heard typical CV call. And then if I've recorded or photographed, etc., I can say recorded or photographed. I will upload a photo later. If I've got good views of the bird, I might want to say pale bill, white-edged tergials, right? If I've been able to see all that, only what I actually see on field, right? And I say that 2 clear wing bars. So in Kolkata, this was probably going to be enough for a yellow-browed wobbler to be accepted. In Bangalore, also it will be enough, but if I don't put the call, then it's not going to be enough because Hume's wobbler is the common related wobbler over here. So just an example of how notes are very important. You can of course put audio or photographs, etc. on the website later. But for now, when you're putting on the app, you want to put as many field notes as possible. Is that clear? So then anyway, so this is yellow-browed wobbler, right? So this is rare, and then until you actually put some notes, right, it's not going to allow you to submit. So heard CV call, I'm going to put again, done. So now I have 3 species on my list. Okay. So now what happens if I try to submit it? So I need to stop the list. So if I stop it, it stops my track. But now I've been sitting in one place. So it will show up as stationary, right? If you're actually walking around, it will automatically pick up some distance if your track is on. Otherwise, you want to put some distance and make it a traveling list. When would I use this option that is incidental? You see an incidental option. Incidental option is when you're not actually watching birds. Say that I'm sitting and I'm driving or something, and I see an amazing bird, say a marsh harrier or something fly across me when I'm driving, and I want to report it. Then what would I do? I would choose the incidental option. I would start a checklist, choose the incidental option, and report a marsh harrier. So now you see this option of observers. If you have with multiple observers, you can share directly from here. So this is the username of my wife. So I can share it with that, right? So now what I have here is I'll make this stationary again. This option is very important here. Are you submitting a complete checklist of the birds you're able to identify? A complete checklist means when you're out birding, it's everything that you're seeing, including crows, miners, pigeons, everything, not just the good birds. So if you're going to see a ruby throat in some part of West Bengal, uh, if you only report the ruby throat after your session, that means you should be clicking on no. But if you are reporting everything, right, then you'll be choosing yes. Okay. uh, so I mean, please ask in the chat whether you have any doubts about this, but this is an extremely important part of you uploading a checklist, whether it is complete or not. Are you uploading a complete checklist, or are you missing out some birds that you have actually seen but you're not reporting? If you haven't seen it, then there is no need to report. Okay, so now let's say I'm putting yes. Okay, let's say that I was watching birds and the only three things I saw were gray francolin, yellow browed warbler, and greenish warbler. No crows, no miners, nothing. Then I click on continue. And when I click on continue, it will take me to location. It will take me to choose a location. So now if you don't have internet, you cannot do this step. If you have internet, this is when you actually need to do this step. Otherwise, you can leave it like that to get to later. So I just hide it, and the checklist is going to remain as an unsubmitted checklist. See, I have an unsubmitted checklist from yesterday also. So this is my unsubmitted checklist from yesterday. These are all the birds. So I've just kept it there because I wanted to add some comments and make some changes before uploading. So here, let's say today's checklist, I'm going to click on review, continue, and choose a location. I'll go to recent, my location is called Tube House 4. So I will choose that. And that is my home location. So I'm going to upload the checklist from here. Okay, so then now if I click on submit, it will get uploaded. I don't want to do that at the moment, otherwise I'll have to delete it. So I'll leave that for now. Is that clear? This is how you create a checklist and upload it. If there is a species that shows a red dot or something, provide some notes, provide some documentation that gives more evidence for it being that species. If it shows up as rare, again provide detailed notes and documentation so that somebody looking at it many years down the line will know, will be convinced that it was that species. So now what happens if you upload a checklist? It goes into, let me just show you. So this is the eBird website, right? So on the eBird website, you have various options. You can also submit a checklist from the website, which follows a very similar pattern, right? You can again, here you choose your location and then you continue, and then you do exactly the same thing. I won't take you through that. That's quite straightforward. But again, on the eBird website, when you open it, you might first want to change if you're opening it for the first time, you might want to modify your preferences. So you click on your name, wherever it is, and then you go to preferences. And in preferences, you have the same options which you had on the mobile. You have common name translated to English India, scientific name English India, both English India. This is my name, and there are various other options that you can choose and not choose. So you go through all that, try out those options. But what will happen after you upload a checklist is it will be stored in your My eBird. If you go to My eBird, you'll get the entire summary of all the checklists you've ever uploaded. How many species have you seen in 2020? How many in 2019? What are your latest checklists? You can see everything. How many have you shared with other people? Right? You can see all of that. And to see your checklists themselves, you go to click on checklists. And then here you have all your checklists. So now I want to see the latest checklist I uploaded, which is this. It's not the most spectacular one, but it's a nice one from home. Some pigeons, green beetle, large-billed crow, etc., etc. So this is the checklist, right? Remember that the app is only to upload checklists. So if you change your phone, if you delete the app and reinstall it, you do all of that, you lose everything that was on the app. But anything that you have uploaded, anything that you have submitted from the phone, everything is going to be there on the website. So the website is where you can see everything. The phone is only to only an interface to actually upload that checklist, right? So now I've uploaded that checklist. Let me just show you how to put media. So here, this is the checklist I have with media. So now after you've submitted your checklist, you can add media. So you can click on, if you don't have any media that is added, you'll have an option that says add media. Now that I've already added some media, I have an option that says manage media. So it's going to give me a page like this, and I can drag and drop any photo I want to the correct species, right? Many of you are going to already know this, but this is where, so if you've seen a rare species like yellow-browed warbler at my house, I will later on go and I will upload the call recording using add media. Is that clear? What you see over here is the track, and this is visible, remember, only to yourself. So if somebody else looks at my checklist, you're not going to be able to see the track, which is a privacy issue. I don't want, for example, people to see where I'm going around my house. I want to see myself. So it's an important, that's why it's only visible to yourself and the shared bird watchers. So you can maximize this, and you can see where you're watching birds. You can zoom in. This is my usual track around the campus near my house. So this is how it is. And now what happens now we are, Mithal spoke about great things that can be done with the data. But here I'm talking about all these checklists coming out. So I'm uploading all of these checklists. I'm able to view all of them. But what happens next? What can you see more without downloading the data? If you go to the explore option here on top, you can see some wonderful things directly on the eBird website itself. You don't have to wait for migration maps and other output. You can see some wonderful things right here. Let's say you want to see the distribution of some species. So if I enter that species, let me look at, let's say, bristle grassbird. So let's say bristle grassbird, I want to look at its distribution. This is what it looks like. It's there are few records here and there in South India, but it's mostly there in these parts around West Bengal, along the Terai, and near Delhi. In South India, it comes down during winter. So if you actually look at what you can do here is you can look at it by season. So let's say I want to look from May to August. So May to August, the species is only in the north. From let's say November to Feb, the species hangs around in North India also a little bit, but the South Indian birds come down during winter. So this gives you an idea of the seasonality. It gives you an idea of the record. You can actually go to every record here and see whether it is correct. So let's say here I want to look at this. I click on this and see whether it is fine. So let's say I have a doubt. Is bristle grassbird really there in South India? I click on this and say, okay, yes, this does look like a bristle grassbird. And I go on and say, okay, it looks like this is maybe if I look at every record, I'll get some confidence that this is an accurate depiction of its range and seasonality. And as you can imagine, there are many mistakes that all of us make. I make mistakes. Various people make mistakes while uploading checklists. Some of them by maybe entering the wrong thing by mistake. Instead of green, I meant to enter greenish wobbler, but I entered green wobbler. Or I actually I thought I was seeing a yellow-browed warbler, but actually it was a Hume's warbler. I upload the recording, and then a reviewer tells me that, okay, this is actually the call of a Hume's warbler, not a yellow-browed warbler. Can you please change it? In which case I will change it. And then the fact that these maps are reasonably accurate and give an accurate depiction of the thing is due to the combined efforts of both bird watchers and a group of reviewers who look at all of this data and make sure that everything has some sort of documentation or everything is justified in some way. If this bristle grassbird record, for example, did not have a photo, I will be a bit suspicious. Near Bangalore, my house, I've never seen a bristlegrass bird. How is there a bristlegrass bird over here? But then I look at the photo, I say, okay, right, it is well documented. So that is the way the system works. So now I have, so this is one thing you can do with Explore, but you can do more. You can explore regions, let's say West Bengal. So West Bengal, 867 species on eBird. I think overall it's over 900 species in West Bengal, which is an incredibly diverse state. And then you can go down and you can look at which species were seen recently, which are the recent checklists. You can look at the top birding areas, top hotspots. Hotspot is these public locations where you can aggregate information. So let me look at a hotspot here. I'm looking at Mahananda Latpanchar, 373 species, 492 checklists, and I can also, look at each one of these and see what the photos are. There's a photo uploaded for some of these. Rufous bellied eagle. What is the photo? Here we are, and so on. Right? Is that so? That's how it works. And then you can do other things over here, like again in Explore. If I go to Explore, you can look at, you can explore hotspots. So that's near your house. You can check out where the nearest best birding areas are. You can look at bar charts to get an idea of seasonality. So let's look at bar charts for, let's say, what species? Let's say greenish warbler in West Bengal. So I put West Bengal, or let's look at Blythe-Reed warbler actually. I keep thinking of warblers. I should think of other things also. Okay, so entire region, I click on continue. And then I want to choose a species. So let me look at Blythe-Reed warbler. So you see, around middle of May, it goes. It leaves India, it leaves West Bengal, and sometime in the middle of August, small numbers start coming in before larger numbers come in from October onwards. So it gives you an idea of the seasonality. Now, how is all this important? If we all get an understanding of when these birds arrive, when they go, what these numbers are like, we are able to track changes in their populations, in their abundances. Suddenly you see 1 year, okay, in August, I haven't had any Blythe-Reed warbler. Sorry? Sorry? Okay, I assume that was unintentional. Anyway, so this is what you can do with these bar charts. So bar charts, it's really interesting to play around, look at these bar charts, understand seasonality. You don't even have to do it just for West Bengal. You can do it for your own area. You can do it for whichever part, whichever district you're from, whichever hotspot you're from. You can look at these bar charts everywhere, right? Other species with clear seasonality will be many of the ducks and other things, but maybe look at which one is this? Kestrel. So Kestrel also is largely a migrant. The whole of West Bengal, it comes down sometime in early September and it leaves by mid to end April. So these are things that you can understand through this. In Explore, you have many other possibilities. Like you can explore hotspots, I told you, but something that I find very useful is this looking for media, photos and sounds. So if I want to look at photos of a particular species, let me look at photos of, so this is now the entire world. There are 22 million plus photos uploaded on eBird and the Macaulay library world over. But I look at something like, let me look at some pitta. Let me look at mangrove pitta. So I look at mangrove pitta. And then I can see some of the best photos uploaded of the species. So here it's recently uploaded, but I can also look at best quality. And these are rated by birdwatchers. So you rate it so that other people looking at these photos will get a good idea of, will be able to look at the best photos immediately. The photos which best show all the characters of the species as well as good quality. So here we are, some great photos of the species, mostly from Singapore and Thailand, but yeah, also this is from Orissa. So this is what you can do through this. You can also choose, you can go by contributor. You can look at your own photos. For example, if I want to look at my own photos of a particular species, I can do that. Or just overall, if I want to look at my photos alone, this is what I will do. So let me click on, oh, sorry. Let me just go to contributor, Ashwin. Right? And then these are all the photos that I have uploaded. Right? And it's now by quality. Right? Anyway, so this is that. And perhaps the last thing, I'll just show you. You can subscribe for rare bird alerts. So what you saw rare on the app, right? These are birds that if you subscribe for alerts for a particular region, you'll be able to see, you'll get a notification and an email whenever when a rare bird is reported in your area of interest. Okay, and I mean, that's quite straightforward. If you go there, you'll be able to figure it out. And here you have target species. Target species is another useful option. Let's say I'm traveling to West Bengal soon, and I want to see what all species in West Bengal I haven't seen. West Bengal. I want to see, maybe not West Bengal, one part. Let me say I'm going to Jalpaiguri, and I want to see what birds from December to January are still new for me in the world, let's say. So that I know, maybe I can decide where to go. Say I still haven't, falcated duck, yellow-breasted bunting, long-billed plover, these are all new birds for me. Right? So I can plan my trip that way, assuming this is what I want to do. But you might just want to go to watch everything, which is equally great. And then you can just look at the map, look at the hotspots and go about that. Right? I suggest you explore the website more. You can download data by clicking on request data over here. There's a formality where you input a small message saying this is why I want the data, and then you will get access to the entire global data set, which if you download, your computer will crash. So you might want to download data for a smaller area, and you can play around with that. You can try and understand birds better using that data. You can also look at other things that eBird has come up with, mainly for the US, but also increasingly now for other parts of the world. And one of the great things for a global database like this is you can look at global distributions of birds, unlike in a thing. So if you look at barn swallow, I suppose many of you know that barn swallow is found almost all over the world. So this is the distribution of barn swallow everywhere, not just in India, not just in Eurasia. It's there in North America, all the way to Alaska, all the way to the northern parts of Siberia and everywhere. Even some records down in Australia. So this way you can understand global distributions of birds. Okay, and before I stop, I'll show you one last thing on the app. So on the app, more recently, there was some nice explore options that have come up. This is, let me go out, right? Sorry. Okay, you see an option down here that says explore. If you click on explore, it's showing me all the hotspots near my house, right? Within a 5-kilometer radius from my house, and in the last 7 days, right? The orange ones are the ones I visited, and the blue ones are the ones I haven't visited, right? And then I can search for species. I can look at species observed, what my targets are for the area, what birds I haven't seen, I want to see over here, etc., right? And when I showed you targets on the website, you can also look at photographic targets. Which birds in an area have I not photographed, but I have seen? So there are lots of options. So explore the website, explore the app, see what you can gain from it. And then you have this option called My eBird, which summarizes things on the app also nicely for you in this way. You can change your location and look at things in different places, but mostly I suggest you use the website for this. So that's it. At least let's leave a little bit of time for questions. So I'll stop sharing. Let me know. I think there are a lot of things in chat. I haven't looked at it yet.
The chat questions, I think, are all answered, Ashwin.
Okay, okay.
Arka has put a message that I think it needs to be emphasized that eBird can be used without internet only during checklist submission, which can be done after you come back home. You need internet.
Yes. So I think I'd somewhat alluded to that, but yes, it's very previously actually on the app, you had to create what was called an offline checklist when you didn't have internet, and then later on upload it. But now everything actually is an offline checklist. You can create your checklist without any internet wherever you are. If you're up in the Trans-Himalayas, you're only going to come back to internet a week later. You can create your checklist, you can enter all the species, and you can just keep it on the side. You can create multiple checklists that way, and only to finally upload it and choose your location, you need internet. So it's a convenient feature, especially if you're traveling to remote areas, etc. You can make all your checklists on the phone itself and just come back and choose the location and upload it. And the location you can easily choose because it picks up your GPS location when you're making the list itself. So you don't need internet, but it's important that you keep your GPS and location on.
So, yeah, someone is saying that India Pack is having some problem to download in Android 11.
I think it will mostly be an internet issue. Are other people also facing this? If anybody is, can they tell? Because I haven't downloaded it recently again. But as far as I know, it is downloading. Can you maybe try when maybe there's an internet issue?
Yeah, maybe Subhashish, you can try where you have good internet issue, try downloading the pack again. Okay, so any more questions people would like to ask, please feel free. One question was, Ashwin, what is the difference between ebird.org and ebird.org/India? So,
Okay.
do you want to show the ebird.org India page?
Yeah. So by default, I go to ebird.org/India. And okay, let me just quickly share my screen again because I think it's a useful thing to show. So I'm sharing my screen and okay. So you see here, so this is ebird.org/India. It's going to tell me my stats for India separately. It's going to have articles that are India specific, like you see what's on in November, what's on in October, etc. Right, which are a summary of events that are going to happen in these months or have already happened in months gone by, and other news and information that is relevant specifically for India. You have other summaries specific to India, and this is my favorite part. As you scroll down the page, you will see photos, audio, and rarity feed that is specific to India. If you look at the global page, you're going to see thousands of things from North America and then one or two things from India once in a while. But I'd like to see what is happening in India specifically. So in India, the latest rarities are these. So this is a bristle grassbird, one that has been making a lot of news in near Bombay or Pune somewhere. Tree pipit from Kerala. So remember, this is unconfirmed. So some of these might be mistakes as well, but this is a tree pipit. Sooty tern because of the cyclone in Chennai. A blight swift in again in Chennai. Ultramarine flycatcher in Telangana, etc., etc. So this is one of my favorite features on the eBird India page, the rarity feed. And although I cannot go to any of these places, it's still nice to look at it and see what everybody is seeing and what's turning up everywhere. Especially now, it's difficult to go anywhere. So it's nice to vicariously live through these interesting birds. So you can see all of these. And the other important thing, as I said, is that this ebird.org/India is basically the eBird India portal. When I spoke about selecting that option on the both on the website, on your website preferences and on the app preferences, when you select the eBird India portal, it automatically gets uploaded to the ebird.org/India website. So if you look at my checklist, so let me go to some of my older checklists. So let's say I want to go a little further back because recently I changed my phone, and then only a couple of days back I went to the correct portal. Anyway, so now I'm clicking on a checklist, and okay, this is unfortunately in the wrong portal. But if I'm on the eBird India portal, it's going to tell me ebird.org/India will come next to my checklist, right? Will come as my checklist link. But if I'm making it on the ebird portal, the main eBird portal, without changing the portal, it's going to say ebird.org/whatever, right? The checklist link is going to be. Is that clear? But the advantage of having ebird.org/India set as your portal is that it's going to automatically go to this global biodiversity information facility as biodiversity information from India. So it's an easy way for it to directly take this information and go towards India's biodiversity goals. So I almost never go to the ebird.org main website. And there's a question about pelagic lists. So Sudeep, yeah, so we'll that maybe we can discuss separately because there is something called a pelagic protocol, which some of the pelagic regulars from Kerala had devised earlier, and it's now implemented by eBird in general. It's called a pelagic protocol, just like our stationary, traveling, incidental, etc. There's a pelagic protocol, and we can I'll put you in touch with somebody who can guide you on that.
Ashwin, there's a question. While sharing the live checklist covering a large area, is it possible to submit any species against a specific location?
I didn't entirely understand the question, but yes, you can technically choose any species, even if it doesn't appear on the list. You can put add species, and then you can choose any species, even if it's extremely rare and it's not there. But the thing is that the list of species is given because mostly those are going to be the species that show up, including rare ones for that area. For example, it's highly unlikely that you'd want to choose a Western Ghats endemic in West Bengal. So, but yes, actually, technically, you can choose any species you want, and you can upload it. And there is a question, yeah, and that's already answered. You can make checklists whenever you want. Even so, I have gone back and although we started using eBird only about 6 or 7 years back in India mostly, many bird watchers have gone back and uploaded what they saw in the 1960s, 1970s, etc. from their notes. So yes, you can upload post-dated checklists. You can upload what you have in your notes, photographs from the past. I've uploaded back for the last 20 years or so, whatever I've seen. I mean, whatever information I had with me, photos or anything. And you can do all that because it serves as your own personal notebook as well. Especially with photographs and other things, it's quite useful. So yes, you can go back and do it. And it's extremely important actually that you do this in terms of conservation, because that's the only way we can understand the long-term status of birds in India. So the reason we know that house sparrows have been stable, some raptors are declining, some shorebirds are declining, we know all that because people have gone back to their notebooks and uploaded very valuable information all the way back from the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and so on. So it's a very large amount of checklists that have been uploaded in the from the past. So yes, so I encourage you to do that. If you have any checklists in your notebooks, etc., can sit down and upload it someday. But be careful about about whether you're marking it as complete or incomplete. For example, if you are only reporting the Word-Eater flycatcher, Brian, if you're only reporting the Word-Eater flycatcher and no other bird in a checklist, then you should be marking it as incomplete. So when you have that option that comes in, are you entering a complete list of species that you saw? You would want to put no. That makes it an incomplete checklist. So you should check no over there because you are only putting one species. Yeah.
Okay, no more questions, and I think we are also done. We are on time. If you have any questions, Ashwin and I are there on the WhatsApp group, the eBirder Fanatics group of West Bengal. So you can continue putting your questions in there. And thank you everybody for making time and attending this session. And thank you Birdwatcher Society for giving us this opportunity. Thank you all of you. Bye.
Thank you for
Yeah,
taking
thanks,
your
everyone.
time out for us.
Sorry?
Thank you, Sujan. We missed
Thank
you.
you for taking your time out for us. So,
Well, I mean, one of the most
so
enthusiastic
again,
groups of birdwatchers in the country.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
There's always something happening.
we have the longest list of birds. If you look at the eBird/India, the West Bengal list is the longest. So obviously, we are keeping ourselves busy.
true.
And now I think we have reached almost 48 or something species now. Bengal.
Yeah, and this
Oh,
2020
lovely.
is a good chance to add some 4-5 more now.
Yeah, we are hoping to make it for 1,000 species from West Bengal soon.
Wow.
Yeah, get more cyclones in your area.
Don't be jealous. We'll do it.
All right, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.